Tomorrow, top officials from 3 federal immigration agencies will testify before the Senate Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs Committee. This comes amid nationwide protests against the administration's immigration crackdown and after the deadly shootings of 2 U.S. citizens by federal agents in Minnesota. Republican Senator Rand Paul of Kentucky is chairman of the committee, and he joins us now. Senator, good to see you again. Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
So let me ask you about the breaking news first, Senator. Overnight, we learned in El Paso, Texas, that the main airport there was shut down for 10 days by the FAA. Now, of course, the FAA does not fall under your committee's jurisdiction, but the TSA does. What more can you tell us about this, and what questions do you have for the FAA?
You know, we'll be making inquiries today. I've just heard about it this morning, so I was not warned of this happening. I don't know if it's a safety issue or an issue where the airport is being used for some other purpose. But yes, we're very curious, and, you know, major airport in a big city, we'd like to know what they're doing and why.
All right, so let me ask you about these testimonies that are slated to happen. ICE Acting Director Todd Lyons, the CBP Commissioner Rodney Scott, and U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services Director Joseph Edlow will testify tomorrow, as you know. What questions do you have for them, and what do you need to hear from their testimonies?
You know, I think the nation, the country at large, or large parts of the country, have lost trust. You know, I think there's a loss of public trust in ICE and their officials after seeing what's been going on in Minneapolis. Now, I think there's fault on both sides, so we're going to have a panel of folks from Minnesota, and we're going to ask them, are you cooperating? Are you trying to turn over people who are violent, who are in prison? Are you turning them over? But we're also going to ask the ICE heads and those at DHS, we're going to ask them, what is the proper use of force? You know, is this the proper use of force? When should the agents be drawing their guns? When should they be firing their guns? And if these heads of these agencies refuse to answer these questions, it's going to be a real problem. Because when a mistake like this happens, when a mistake of this magnitude happens, the first thing should be an apology, and it should be regret, it should be sadness, and it should be, we are going to do better, and this is the policy, and we're going to make sure it's enforced. And I think Homan is doing better. Tom Homan has said, at least in vague terms, the agents will be punished if they don't behave. But the public needs to know how to behave, too. Do you have a chance of being shot if you take a weapon and have a proper license for a weapon to a rally? You know, could you be shot if you're yelling at ICE officers? Could you be shot if you're gesticulating? You know, what are the things that would allow for deadly force? And these heads of these agencies need to be prepared to ask. And since yesterday, it was mostly sidestepping. So I hope they're prepared today to ask a difficult and important questions.
So, Senator, you do believe that the killings of Renee Nicole Good and Alex Preddy were mistakes. Yesterday in that House hearing, Acting ICE Director Todd Lyons, he refused to apologize to those families. Will you push back if that's his response?
Absolutely, because one of their responses is, oh, it's in the middle of an investigation, we're not going to comment. Well, we have at least 4 members of the administration who commented immediately. Within hours of the video being posted, within hours of the shooting, they had drawn conclusions. And now, weeks later, with everybody having seen the video, they're going to say, oh, we're not going to draw conclusions. No, they need to draw better conclusions. They need to be more judicious, and they need to be more fair-minded in their thinking, because no one in the public seeing those videos is believing what they're saying. And to make things better, look, I don't want to emasculate ICE. I don't want to get rid of ICE. I want violent prisoners who are in jail in Minnesota to be transferred peaceably to ICE to be deported if they're not here legally. So Minnesota needs to cooperate, and that's an important part of this hearing. I'm going to have the Attorney General Ellison here. I'm going to have the head of prisons for Minnesota here. I'm also going to have the Republican Majority Leader here, as well as a Republican congressman from Minnesota. We want to hear both sides on this.
So let me ask you, Senator, before we let you go, you say that the function of ICE should be to remove criminals from the United States. CBS News exclusively reported that less than 14% of those arrested by ICE in President Trump's first term had violent records, and nearly 40% had no criminal records at all. So do you believe that ICE is operating competently and effectively?
Well, the real question is, I think you make a point that a lot of them are not violent criminals. But what if Minnesota is saying we're going to give you 0%? So then you have 14% that are violent, they're not being turned over. So that could be significant, particularly if it's your family member that was raped or murdered by somebody who had already done this in one state, served time, got out and did it again. So it is important. The percentage is an important one, but it isn't the end of the answer. The question is Minnesota cooperating? And I think the facts are a little bit on both sides, and we're going to try to make it more explicit. I think the prison in Minnesota actually is divulging information. I think some of the jails are not. But we need to get to the root of the problem, and we need better communication. And really, there shouldn't be so many ICE agents, but one of the reasons there's so many ICE agents is lack of cooperation.
All right.
So, I think we can do better than what we're doing, obviously.
Senator, real quick, 15 seconds. Will you compromise with Democrats to prevent a shutdown on Saturday?
I'm for some of the reforms being talked about. We need to get to the details of them, but I think some reforms are necessary.
All right, Senator Rand Paul, always good to have you, sir. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.